started, and hopefully some others will join us, but who knows. I want to welcome you guys for being here, and we'll go ahead and get started on our seventh Zoom session, which means we are pretty much close to, halfway. So if you are working on stuff, go ahead and keep getting it in to me. I would certainly appreciate that. All right, so let's look at tonight's class sessions, February 28th. We are on Zoom session 7. There are only 15 Zoom sessions, which means that we are very close to halfway there, so hang in there. Just looking ahead, just want to remind you that when you turn in things, hey Mark, when you turn in things, most of them go here under discussion board, so keep those coming, as well as it also goes under the scenario part here. And remember, in discussion board, there's a page 2 that you have to go to. So don't forget all those. I don't want you to forget those. And we also have the task stream week. Well, that's the schedule. The Dropbox for your projects as well. And you guys are doing a great job on that. So keep those coming as well. All right. So tonight, hey, Delicia, did I get it right?
Yeah.
I am working very hard on that one. All right, so tonight we're going to go into session 7, and we're going to talk about 2 things. First of all, I want to spend some time on this template. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up. It'll be made available to you as well. So if you want to pull it up and look at it, this is going to give you some guidance with the PSYOP, because many of you are already into that. So this will give you some guidance. Let me pull it up. Where did it go? No, I didn't pull it up. This came from Dr. Lamb. I think I've got it here. Okay. Can everybody see this? All right. Dr. Lamb put this together a couple of semesters ago, and this basically will walk you through. I know you've done some things with Dr. Robertson, but this will walk you through with where you can find some existing things. You've already put together, 5 different projects in order to finish up this semester with Gardner-Webb. So when you start putting together evidence number 6, which is your school improvement action plan, and if you've seen this, great, but if you haven't, this is where you can go back and start pulling information from those 5 other projects that you've completed. So if you'll look for prompt 1, which most of you, I believe, have done or well on your way toward doing, which is informational or background information and description of the setting, if you will go back to your script, which you completed in 604, prompt 1, that has a lot of the information that you'll be able to just simply cut and paste and put into task 1 for your PSYOP. So you're not reinventing the wheel for everything, but this kind of will give you an idea of where to look for information. You can also look at the APSAIL, which was in 601. If you have the EBOS material, the OEMA, which is in 603, the CAP in 604. So anytime you see something in red, that means you've already addressed the data that we're kind of looking for. So if you want to go back and pull those as you're starting to write your projects, you're starting to put together that school improvement team or school improvement action plan, you've already written quite a bit of this into projects, again, for the school. Under the second prompt, I guess it goes this way. Under the second prompt, go back and look at your CAP, task 1 through 4, your script, task 1, prompt 2. Again, if you've done all these things, so go back and cut and paste, and you probably already know this, and many of you are already doing this. For task 3, you can go back to your script, you can go back to your CAP, and again, anytime you see something in red, that's going to help you move toward getting some materials already there. For task 5, you'll see you go back to your APSAIL, your APTAIL, your CAP, so many different things. And of course, under task 6, when you do your self-analysis of your 21 standards or your 21 competencies, that's something brand new, so you'll need to look at those. So this is now available here on the page. So I hope that you will utilize it as you're putting together your your information. There's an echo. Is everybody off? Is that just me? Okay. All right, so let me get back to where we were. All right, so tonight we're going to spend a little time talking about transactional leadership, and I want to walk you through a quick little PowerPoint. I invited Dr. Robertson. If he joins us, great. We'll stop and let him talk for a few minutes about the projects. But he says that you guys are already turning them in and doing a great job on them. When you get a grade from me, remember, if it's an 80 or a 95 or something like that, all you got to do is resubmit when you have the material that I've asked you for, and we'll get a higher grade. All right, so let me talk a little bit. I'm still getting, all right, I'm opening that. Maybe I need to move you up. There you go, I've been canceling. All right, so tonight we're going to talk about transformational and transactional leadership. And I know you've read some articles about this, so it shouldn't be new information to you. But I do want to spend some time with you on this. So let me move you guys. All right, so transactional and transformational, just off the cuff. Does anyone want to kind of tackle what each one of them means? Anybody have a really good information, any really good kind of definition of what transformational leadership is? Because that's kind of what we're talking about more and more and more. What's transformational leadership in a nutshell? Anybody want to tackle it before we get started? Kind of like a pre-test. No one wants to tackle it. All right. By the end of tonight, though, we're going to have a quick little quiz to see who can answer the questions then. All right. So transformational leadership. This, by the way, is the big move right now. If you had to say there was an educational trend, what was it in educational leadership? It's transformational leadership. It's replaced transactional. So I want to talk about transformational. And again, when you go to apply for that first principalship or that assistant principalship, they're going to ask you your leadership style. They may or may not, it all depends on who your interview team is, they may or may not completely understand transformational, but it is a great style to throw out there that this is what you are particularly interested in. So do a quick little background on transformational. It is the hottest trend right now. It's the one that is getting the most attention. So it was introduced by James Burns. James Burns was he's written quite a few books on the presidents. He does the biographies for them, and he's quite well known for that. And his series, in his books on the presidents, he really looks at their leadership styles, and that's why he has sort of developed this particular theory himself, the transformational. All right, basically in a nutshell, so when I asked you at the end of class tonight, in a nutshell, what is transformational leadership? Here's what it is. It is when you lead based on your vision, your personality, and you inspire others. You're transforming not only the organization, but the people around you. So transformational, and we'll talk more about it, but it really is being able to move forward, not only the organization, but also move forward the people with you. And it is by ways that we call the soft skills. It's by motivation. It's by changing perceptions. Edward Bass, who kind of put it together in the transformational leadership theory, Bass's, but it is based on the impact it has on followers. All right, so let's look and see. Now, the reason why we're talking about transformational leadership, other than it's going to be good for you when you go and apply for your first job, or when you have to describe what your leadership style may be, it is also good to know how the people you are currently working with, what kind of style they use. And so a little bit later on, I'll probably ask you a couple of questions about, does this remind you of anybody? All right, transformational. The big hot word, the big hot thing now is transformational leadership, and it is based on 4 components, and that is intellectual stimulation. Now, as we're going through this, try to think of people that you know who may fit this category. So transformational components, intellectual stimulation. These are people, these are leaders, whether they're in your school or they're in your buildings or in your district. They not only challenge the status quo, but they encourage creativity. So think of a principal that you've worked for. I want you to, by the end of the night, I want you to be able to identify one principal that you've worked for or one leader that is transformational and one that is transactional, which we'll define that a little bit later on. But transformational leaders, they believe in you. They challenge the status quo. These are the people who come in who clean up messes. These are the people who come in who lead the school, who take it to the next level. And they do so by encouraging creativity. They're the ones who give you hands off. They say, look, you accomplish the goals. I'm not going to stand over you and monitor you all the time to tell you how to do it. They also are very much involved in individualized consideration. They believe in their people, and that means that they also foster those relationships with people. These are the ones who foster that supportive relationship. Now, that doesn't mean they become the best friend to everyone. That doesn't mean that they have this buddy-buddy and they go out drinking on Friday night or partying or whatever it is that you wouldn't want to do with your leader or your boss anyway. But these are the people who build that personal relationship that's based on a caring concern for that person as a part of the organization. So it's a supportive relationship. It's not a kill relationship. It's not a mama relationship or a dad relation, but it's supportive. And it's supported primarily in what they're doing in the workplace, but it also goes beyond that, supportive in their personal lives. They are inspirational. They have a very clear vision themselves, and they help others to see that. I mean, it's very clear to see what these people believe in, what their vision is. And they try to pass that along to the people inside the organization. They don't have favorites. They don't try to develop a cadre of people who believe as they do. They really try to make everyone see their vision through their actions. And they serve as a role model, obviously. So they try to build that trust in a leader, and they want their people, and the people are so enamored with this that they want to also be a part of that. All right, so these are the 4 big things. Right offhand, you don't have to tell me right up now, because later on I'm going to ask you to think about a principal or director or someone who really exemplifies this, but you kind of get a picture for who I'm talking about. This is that awesome principal. This is that really, really awesome person that you've had a chance to work for in the past, who really doesn't stand over top of you and watch everything you do. They kind of trust you, and they put you in a position, and they inspire you. They ask about your family. They ask about your professional life, but they really do kind of back up and say, I've given you this job. Now you do it because I have great faith in you. And you know what? People like that, when you have a leader like that, most of us will just kind of give 110% to make that person happy with what we do. So that's that kind of person. All right, now when you're looking at the research about transformational leadership, why it is so popular and why it is such a great skill or leadership skill to have, is there's even some research that says our health benefits. There are health benefits to working for a transformational leader. And again, all of this that we're talking about, and every time we come on in Zoom for these 15 sessions, the intent is for you to take away something that you're going to use in your next leadership capacity. So transformational leadership, it does have some great qualities that I want you to look at. So they are stimulators. They inspire people. They really see the stars, and they believe in the outcomes. They believe that you can do a lot more than you think you can do, and they develop the others' leadership capacity as well as their own. They help their people who work for them. They help them to grow, and they also encourage them to become leaders too by empowering them. And they're making sure that they remove some of the obstacles that their leaders have, that their followers have within the organizations. As a research on this shows that these types of leaders have a great positive effect on not only the group, but on the group dynamics, but is also on the success of the group project. So these people are well sought after. These people are really phenomenal leaders. They also show that people who work for transformational leaders are much more likely to perform above and beyond. They are very much interested in making sure that they hold up their end of the deal. They want to make sure this leader has great confidence in them, and they don't want to let down this particular type of leader. So what you're seeing here is the building up of a cult of a leader. I mean, you've got a kind of a leader or a principal or a director that people really, really don't want to let down, and they want to give 110%. We'll talk a little bit later on. That's one of the problems with transformational. But right now, we're only talking about the good things, and that is that this is the kind of leader that I think you and I would like to work for. They also have higher levels of performance, higher levels of satisfaction. When you become this kind of leader, when you get your teacher working condition surveys or your surveys back, your staff will just say, wow, it's great working here. They also believe in their people, and they lead the group to that believing in themselves. Okay? I told you there is a health benefit as well. Transformation. The research has shown that when you work for a transformational leader, the positive influence on your well-being is well documented. People enjoy coming to work. People don't want to not be at work because they feel like they're kind of letting you down, this kind of leader. And so they have a higher level of attendance. They have a higher level of job satisfaction, which of course helps them with their well-being as well. This is a simple connection here. If you've thought about some of the jobs that you really don't like, that you've ever worked in, and you may have done this when you're going through college, or hopefully it's not one you're in now, but you feel your well-being and your health is much more improved when you are doing something that you enjoy. So people who work for these leaders also have higher levels of well-being. They feel much better, and it's not really related to the types of job. It's related to the person and the environment in which they're working in. All right. So continuing on about our transformational leaders, they are considered quiet. They're not the ones out there who are, well, look at me, look at me, look at me. They are really the ones who lead by example. They use rapport, inspiration, empathy, and they also understand that sometimes you need to make a sacrifice for the greater good. They're also single-minded. They want to streamline things. They want to change things that no longer work. These are the folks that school districts will call in when the school has got some problems. These are the kinds of leaders who are called in to take care of it. So the specialty for these folks, they are change agents. They are the ones who districts and superintendents like to hire to come in and make some changes. They solve challenges by finding experiences that show that the old path. Here's what they do. Because when you go into a school and you have one of these kinds of leaders, you're going to have the naysayers, and you're going to have the people say, we've done that before, it doesn't work. Well, a transformational leader will show you that what's currently doing doesn't work anymore. And that's how they get and motivate people to move forward. They're wanting to know what has to be changed, so they are very much into analyzing the school, analyzing the data, and finding out what doesn't work, and moving the staff toward developing their capacity and capability. So here's some great examples of people national examples of people who are considered transformational leaders. You probably have all heard of Ed Deming. He is the one who did all the quality research. Peter Drucker, he's one of those great speakers. Ross Perot, he ran for president at one time, but he also developed this great company, this data company out of Texas, and of course John Rockefeller. So those are some of the national examples of transformational leadership. So let me stop at this point to ask you, have any of you ever worked for anybody like this? Don't be shy. Has anybody ever worked for a transformational leader where you can now say, gosh, this person was transformational?
I have.
All right, describe it.
Well, in our school, in this particular situation, we didn't have clubs or anything like that yet implemented throughout the school day. And we had a lot of kids kind of getting into trouble after school and even during school. They really didn't have an outlet for their creativity. And so our leader decided to create something where every teacher could pick what type of club they wanted to have. And then we implemented it throughout the day. And then sometimes they would extend into after school hours, and sometimes it would just be during school. But it really it made us excited about club day because we got to pick what to do with the kids, and the kids were excited about, kind of seeing all the other students, because usually they're stuck seeing either, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, etc. They're kind of joined together in clubs and that sort of thing. So.
All right, well, talk a little bit about, Amanda, talk a little bit about the personal traits of this person.
They were very positive all the time, always giving us feedback on our ideas and suggestions, which is really helpful. So if we weren't sure about something, we could go to them and say, well, do you think this would work or not? and they would, think about it, get back with us, and, tell us that they thought it was a good idea or not. But they were also very present with the students, and they were, I don't know, it was very personal and kind of helped build like a family feeling almost among ourselves as faculty, but as also with the kids.
Well, how successful was the school under them?
Very successful, very successful. We saw big jumps in scores, and attendance went up and everything else with it. So it was very good.
Good deal. All right. Thank you, Amanda. Anybody else have one? They want to talk about the traits and qualities of a great transformational leader?
I have one that I think is transformational. The only thing is some of the qualities that you listed, some people might beg to differ. But I say that she was my old principal in Durham, and I served under her for 7 out of the 9 years I was at that school. And she definitely had a clear vision that she articulated to us. She gave us the reason, why her vision was the way it was, and she gave us the means of how to go about changing those things and why the things we were doing weren't working. I also saw her develop leaders from within the school, like some of the people who used to be classroom teachers end up being the literacy facilitators, the AIG facilitators. And she always encouraged people to go back and get their degrees, and, was supportive of the things they were doing in their careers professionally as far as growth. And she made sacrifices. Like when she saw that kids weren't getting the instruction that they needed in 5th grade, she came in for 2 or 3 weeks and just modeled how to do effective lessons, because there was a lot of new teachers in that grade. And I feel like when she first became the principal, just as the backdrop, she used to be the assistant principal there. And then she left and became a principal somewhere else, and then came back to the school and became a principal. But she already knew some of the challenges that we were facing at the school, and she came in very proactive. So I feel like she's a transitional leader, although she's not very quiet. She is kind of outspoken or passionate when she's delivering her vision. But other than that, I don't think she's a more look at me kind of leader. I just think that all of the change that we had to go through to get what we got was hard for people. But we did go from an F to a C under her leadership.
Well, let me ask you this. You mentioned that some people may not agree. And this is a question for you too, I guess, Amanda. In a school like this with a transformational leader, are there naysayers? And what's kind of the basis of that? Did you have naysayers?
I mean, we definitely did at my school, but they didn't like it because she was very we had to have word walls for every content subject, and she wanted science to be yellow, and she wanted math to be pink, and she wanted reading to be white. So when the kids went to the next grade, they would always have that consistency. Or she wanted the boards changed every 2 weeks with kids' names and dates and updated work, and people didn't like the accountability part of it. And so they were complaining about it a lot. But
people had to work.
Results, so
she was asking people to work as hard as she did.
Right.
Yeah. Amanda, I know you've answered, but did they have distractors in your school or people who were not happy with her, and why?
We did. There were a few people who really just didn't like that whole idea of doing these clubs and that sort of thing with the students, the way the setup would be, where they were mostly complaining about the grades being connected. There was a worry about 6th graders with 8th graders and stuff like that. But I think a part of it was just seeing the results that helped that a lot. So once the teachers saw that, it was working out and the kids were excited about it, and that, there was a lot of smooth transitions that happened. And the principal checked in on it too to make sure that was the case. It wasn't like we were kind of on our own. But over time, I think everyone came around. But I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know if they complained to her or not about it all when it was all said and done. But the little bit of complaining that I heard on my team went away pretty quickly once they saw how it was working out. So
that's good. That is good. All right. Thank you both. All right. So if you want to be this kind of leader, let's talk a little bit about what kind of qualities you're going to have to develop when you move into it. Because I think what we're hearing is that this is a leadership style that really works well and people like from our 2 examples. People really like working for someone like this. So let's see what kind of things are required to be a transformational leader. Well, first of all, you've got to be well organized. I think both examples that were given here are people who are well organized and they know what they're doing. They don't come in on Monday morning and fly off and say, we're going to do this today, do that today. And that's a part of that vision, is that they know that they know where they're going, and they know where they're going in the next year, not just the next day. So they're very well organized. They also they encourage creativity, and they've got to be comfortable with people who are creative. They've got to be comfortable with people who can think outside of the box. All right, they need to be team oriented and expect the followers. You've got to promote team. You've got to want to be a part of that team. You've got to leave that team alone, give them a task, and then leave that team alone to let them get the best results. You've got to respect, and of course you'll be respected. You got to be a coach. You got to provide the training, the motivation to reach those goals, and then you have to be responsible. And that means you have to take responsibility when the team fails, and make sure they get the responsibility when the team is successful. All right. And they have to have that personal. Now, here's some of the, I told you we talked about some of the advantages and disadvantages of the transformational style. Transformational leadership doesn't work in every single situation. And so the first school setting that you get to go in and become the leader, there are some times when you can't be transformational. But here's when it's good. Here's when it works well. When you need new ideas, when a school is kind of at the status quo and they're just moving along, they're just kind of hanging in there. It's good when you want to communicate new ideas and new vision. They're very good at balancing the short-term vision with the long-term goals. They build coalitions. That's a need, that they have to have those coalitions, and they establish that mutual trust. Now, here's some of and they obviously have great integrity. So here's some of the things that do not work well. You can't put one of these kinds of leaders in an ad hoc situation. You just can't kind of throw them in there Monday and ask them to perform or to do their job. They're not comfortable with that. And why is that? Why is it you just can't move them around and throw them somewhere? What's in their mindset that keeps them from being successful on the fly? What are one of those things that they do that wouldn't work well for them to just go in on Monday and try to fix things?
That long-term planning piece and having goals and visions for the long term wouldn't work if you were just thrown into a school that had already started some form of goal or vision, even if it's not great.
Exactly. These people they're organized. They've already got everything in their little category, so they know where they're going. So just throwing them somewhere, that's not a good thing. They are not good when it's required to go in and fix the structure. In other words, when they have to go in with a playbook where the superintendent goes in and says, here are the 5 things I want you to accomplish at this school. That's not how they work, because that's someone else's goals. That's not something that they internalize. And they're a bad fit for bureaucratic structures. In other words, they don't follow the rules very well. They don't necessarily want to go into a situation where they have certain things that they have to accomplish, timelines, those kinds of things. Here are some disadvantages to being a transformational leader. There are several. One, and the biggest one, of course, is that cult. Remember, we talked about these kinds of leaders sometimes are seen as the people belong to a little cult of worship of this particular principle. Well, sometimes that can backfire. These people could become powers of their own in a district. They could become someone who is easily moved around because someone else feels threatened by them. They can result in wrong directions, because just because you have a vision, just because you have this idea of where things need to go, sometimes it's wrong. They also they demand so much from their employees, or so much from the staff, that their employees sometimes burn out. They also assume that everybody is as motivated as they are, which is a big letdown for a lot of people, because many people are not motivated other than to do what they have to do. And of course, you know people like that in your buildings who really just basically are there because they're going to do the bottom line, the basic to do. They take risks, which could sometimes be a disadvantage because the risk could fail, and it could get them in some trouble with the central office and others. They prioritization. Sometimes they're all over the place with their ideas and their visions, that they can't really say, I need to tackle this today. Their details, they're not really great detail folks. Sometimes they overlook reality. Their goals are super unrealistic, and sometimes they're not always effective. So, all right, now we're going to switch gears to talk about the other kind of leader. All right, so before I do, somebody sum up a transactional leader for me. I'm sorry, transformational. Let me go back. Transformational. I don't want to keep going forward. All right, somebody, real quickly, just tell me what, in a summation, what's a transformational leader? DJ, you want to try it? Yes, I can tell.
Someone who, has things that are, they have their priorities together, they're detail oriented, people who are there to delegate tasks, get out my face, delegate tasks to people.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're great leaders, right? They motivate. Good job. All right, so let's turn our attention now. Thank you, DJ. Let's turn our attention to the next kind of leaders, and this is not a style that is in favor anymore, although sometimes it's important to have this particular style, and that's called transactional. And in a nutshell, transactional leadership are people who react. They are people who are very much by the book. And I'm going to ask you later on, probably you, Mark, to give me an example of a transactional leader, so be thinking. But transactional leadership, these are the kinds of leaders, let me put you all down at the bottom. These are the kinds of leaders who believe in, I'm the boss, I've got goals, we've got to work, this is the organization, this is what you've got to do. So a transactional leader is one who's focused on supervision. That's important to them, organization, and uniformity. That's what they really like. So this leadership was first gotten by Max Weber. All right, so here's some of the basic assumptions of this particular style. And let me just say, this is not the style in favor right now, but this is a leadership style that sometimes works well. So here's what they believe. And you will, Mark, you'll be thinking of the exact person who meets this profile. This is the person who believes that there is a chain of command. This is what you do. This is the procedures. Here's what. There's step 1, step 2, step 3. So the chain of command is very, very clear. They also believe in rewards and punishment. You do what we ask you to do, and there's a reward. If you don't quite do what I'm going to do, I'm going to write you up, or there will be a note in your file. So that's what they think motivates people, getting rewards or not getting punished. They also believe in obeying instructions. They believe that the leader is the commander and cannot be questioned. And that your job, if you're not the leader, your job is to support the leader. And they believe that your people who work for you have to be monitored all the time. So they believe that not only rewards and punishments, but this is pretty much very much a business model too. Punishments and rewards. And they are very much interested in maintaining the status quo. They're not particularly interested in taking the business to the next level. They really are interested mostly in maintaining where they are. All right, so how does it work? Rewards and punishments, we talked about that. Rules, procedures, all those things are important. Uniformity is important because when you come in, you ought to be able to know that you do this, 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 and this today. It is important that you as a follower are following the rules, and that I as the leader am enforcing the rules, and I'm also maintaining those to make sure that you are doing them. So this is really not the kind of leadership style that most people like working for, unless you like rules, you like procedures, you like to be told what to do. And in the business model, this is the model that's used a lot. But now in the field of education, when you're the principal and you're dealing with teachers, I don't know too many teachers, but there are some. I take that back. I don't know many teachers who like to be told and like to be monitored and but you probably know some who like to be rewarded and punished. So that's really not a model that's pretty much in education, but it is a model that works for some people. And there are teachers out there who would prefer, just tell me what to do. You've heard that. Okay, so for transactional leaders, and these are the ones we're talking about right now, they are really focused on those short-term goals. They're focused on the status quo. They like structure. They thrive on rules. They like efficiency, and that's what their goal is. It is efficiency. We got to do this well. They are inflexible. Sometimes they're opposed to change. It's not necessarily on their to-do list. They like the system. They like everything working within the system. They don't like those out-of-the-box people. They don't like somebody challenging the system. They really like the way it's working. And they like it because there's a known pattern, and they like patterns. They like step-by-step. It's sometimes called the telling. Now, but there are times when this particular style, and the reason why we share it with you in Males 605 is because there are times when you may be called upon to go to a school setting that this style will work best. And there are schools in which there are situations in which this would work best. But if you are doing this, I would encourage you to do this, use this style for at least a year or two, and then switch back over to the transformational. Okay, so when is it most effective? It's most effective when the problems are very simple and the answers are very simple, clearly defined. This is. Have you ever had that principal who says it's in the rule book? If it says that we do it this way, this is the way we do it. It's all black and white, yes or no. And it also works well in a crisis, because when in a crisis, you don't need a lot of, what about this, what about that, what about that? You really need, and this sometimes is when it works best, you really need that person to step forward and this is what we're going to do. And that works well in a crisis. And we don't have, and that's why when a principal, you're in a principal and you have a lockdown drill or something, this is when your transactional leadership style is going to come to the forefront, because, by gosh, here's what we're going to do, people. So because that's what we do in a crisis. So there are times in which the style works extremely well. And they focus on maintaining the structure. Here are some examples of great transactional leaders. You know them all. Howard Schultz, the last person I understand may be running for president. We'll see. But these are examples of people who really do believe in this particular style. It's very much a top-down style. All right, so here are some disadvantages and advantages of using the transactional style. And this is a style that you need to have in your playbook. It works. So here's when it works well. It works well when people are motivated by rewards. And they really just want you to tell me what to do and I'll do it. Tell me what I need to do. They also, when you are in a large system where people just really have to do the same old thing all the time, when you have short-term goals that you're working on, or when rewards and penalties work. Now, here's when they don't work. One, it takes advantage of the worker. It really believes and requires a lot of perks. The creativity is completely gone because you really don't want people thinking out of the box, nor do you want people to have personal initiative. So you really don't want to be training your people to become future leaders, because you're kind of, that's not what you need them for. You need them to follow directions. So the benefits, this can work well in multinational corporations. It also works well in the military, works well for police, any kind of organization that has to have a lot of order and structure. And it also works well in the business world because, particularly on the manufacturing side, because people work for money, the benefits, and to pay the bills. All right, so Mark, do you have an example of a transactional leader that you want to share with us?
Yeah.
Good. It's all yours.
It's all mine. I actually am working for a principal now that falls into that transactional leadership style.
All right, describe them without giving us the name.
Sure. Very, very difficult time with organization and time management, if you will. And because of that, tends to be much more telling, making knee-jerk reaction decisions. Looks over teachers' shoulders consistently. She doesn't give a task to someone and let them run with it, and this just kind of monitor. It has to be fully involved and know every little thing that's going on. It's very hard to work for someone like that. I don't mind to say that. And what I've seen in my role since August is, and the vibe that I get from some teachers is some teachers feel like that they are talked down to, and therefore it's creating a atmosphere where I don't know that they're doing things that they're being asked to do because they don't know how to do it, or if they're just saying, well, I'm not going to do it because you're telling me I have to.
Right.
I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but it's very hard to work for someone like that. Very difficult. Great person, good intent, but very micromanaged.
All right. Mark, are there people who do like working in that? Are there people who do like working there with that kind of leadership? I mean, they probably, I don't know if you hang around the lounges or anything like that, but do you get a sense that there are some people there who really like that style?
There are a couple, I think, that like it. I'm not sure they like it for the right reason, but I think they like it. I just think that, oddly enough, I had a conversation today in my office with a employee who came in and said, I don't know if I'm going to complete my intent form to try to come back to this school next year because this has been the worst year I've had.
And they attribute that to the leadership.
They attribute that to the leadership. The chaos is the word that was used, because when you tell everybody what to do and you can't trust the people that you tell what what you need them to do, if you can't trust them to go do what they need to do without having to look over their shoulder, then you spread yourself so thin that you don't do any one thing well.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Like if you're trying to take care of 45 or 50 employees, but you've got to know what all 45 and 50 of those employees are doing all the time, then how do you do anything well? Because you're spending all your time worrying about what somebody else is doing instead of worrying about what you need to be doing.
All right. Trying to stay
in the school.
All right. Trying to stay in control. So, but I will guarantee you, Mark, and for everyone listening, that there are people in that building who like it for the right reasons too, Mark, because some people feel real secure if you just tell me what to do, even teachers. And that's true in all of our schools. So now if a crisis were to come to that school, that principal probably would be an excellent one to get you through that crisis. But long-term, transactional leaderships are really, they're designed to take care of an immediate, they work best when they take care of an immediate problem. But once that problem and you've gotten it taken care of, at that point you need to loosen up. Remember when they told you when you were teaching, be rough the first year or first couple of months of school, and then you can loosen up? That's kind of the concept with this. When that principal has to be in a crisis situation, it's best to use this style and then move and then kind of evolve into the transformational style. So 2 different styles, they both work. You and I are most comfortable with transformational because that's probably the way all of us are. We kind of like working for leaders like that, but also recognizing that there are times when the transactional leader is responsible as well. So as you begin to develop your skills as an administrator, you're going to need both of them. And you're going to need to know not only the skills, but when to use those, because you will be called upon in different kinds of situations. All right, before I let you go, cut you loose tonight, I do want to just go back to Blackboard just to remind you that as I am looking at grades, we are about halfway through with the course. So if you have not started putting your SIAP or your SIOP into the task stream or into task assignments here for me to grade, go ahead and start doing that and use that sheet that I opened up here, the SIAP template, to go ahead and start putting those together. And don't be afraid to send me something. I'll grade it, but remember, you get to keep getting graded at many different times. So if I give you an 80 and tell you you need to add this, this, and this, and this, that's okay. Go back and add it, and you'll get to that 100, which is where we want you to be. And by the time you turn this into task stream, Dr. Robertson is going to also give you a lot of great advice about how to get there. But you guys are doing a great job. Just know we're halfway there. And so we've only got about another eight classes to meet, which is about 8 weeks. Well, about 10, because I think we have 2 weeks off in there, a spring break and a Easter break. All right, are there any questions for me tonight? We're going to meet again on March the 7th. Any questions for me? All right, I'm going to stop recording and I'm going to hang around. If anyone wants to talk,